Welcome everybody. Happy to see you all. Happy New Year. Glad to be with you. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. I'm here. My name is Shannon. I'm here with my Civitas colleagues, Margaret and Brooklyn, and Emily, our wonderful translator. I work with the Civitas team as we support childcare business owners across the country. We're here to help. So if you need any questions, and one second. My cats love a Civitas webinar, so they always want to join, and I had to kick them out of the room. So apologies for that. Awesome. So if you need any support, reach out via the chat along the way. Our presentation today will be all about childcare business taxes, as I'm sure that's why you're here and why you signed up, and your options for tax preparation. We're going to give you a lot of tools and tips, hopefully to make that tax preparation piece a little bit easier. We will have time for questions at the end, so plan to have those ready for the chat. I'll give you a little heads up before we get there so you can put those in the chat and be ready for that. Awesome. And finally, before we begin, please put your name and your PDS number in the chat. That gives us a chance to verify our attendance and award certificates quickly. I guess some people put an email. Margaret, should they be putting their number or their email in the chat? What is it that you want in the chat?
I think we can just sign in with names. I don't have any numbers needed for this.
Okay, great. Just names in the chat if you don't mind. You can introduce yourselves as well, and say hello to your peers. All right, and so while we get started here, we will be talking about taxes today. And so we have this disclaimer here to remind us that this is not intended for tax advice or to substitute for seeking professional guidance from someone who can work with you and advise you on your unique situation. We will do our best to answer general questions and provide good information for you to help understand how it works. But absolutely, we encourage you to seek out professional tax advisor, especially someone you trust, someone, we're going to talk a little bit about this in our content today. So if you need it, if your situation needs it, absolutely seek out a tax professional advice, a professional tax advisor if needed. So in today's session, we'll be covering several important tax topics to help you run your childcare business as smoothly as possible. As a bonus, these practices will benefit your business year round. So there'll be a lot of good stuff in there that's useful, that's critical at tax time, but also kind of gives you some best practices year round. First, we're going to discuss why you should care about taxes throughout the year, not just in April. So we want to make sure everybody understands why this is important. Then we'll kind of get into some tax specific information, starting with a Schedule C, what it is, how to use it to report your childcare business income and expenses. Then once you know about a Schedule C, we'll discuss how you can prepare for tax season. And then finally, we will talk about, as I mentioned, we promise some good tips and tricks to help you get your taxes prepared. So we want to leave you with some good information, like some actionable information to help get started. Our goal today, as I mentioned, is to provide you with some tax knowledge to optimize your filing and minimize your headaches during tax season. Tax season is scary, and we want to take a little pressure off with some of the information we're going to share today. So, let's talk about why caring about your taxes is important for your business. And so knowing how to effectively address taxes can help you with a few things. The first is profit retention. And so obviously we want to encourage every business owner to pay their fair share of taxes. Proper tax preparation can help savvy business owners not pay more than their fair share, not pay more than they're supposed to be paying. So proper tax preparation can help you recapture hard-earned profit, and thereby keeping some money in your pocket at tax time. So understanding allowable expenses and making sure that you're not doing anything, first of all, that's not allowable, but second, that's just extra, results in like legitimately paying what is owed and not any more so that you can retain those profits. Second, of course, risk mitigation is a big piece of this. Education is key when it comes to understanding those allowable expenses I talked about, and doing proper tax preparation. The more that you are aware of tax rules as they apply to childcare business, and when it comes to taxes, childcare businesses are a little bit unique. So we want you to be even more educated than the average small business owner. So the more you know about taxes, the less likely you are to trigger an audit. Of course, audits are time consuming. They cause distress. Likely they cost money. You could pay a fine or you could pay someone to help you. Um, an audit is most likely going to cost you money, right? In addition to causing you some stress that's not necessary. And then taxes can also help you understand your business's health, right? We talked about understanding income, money that's coming in, and understanding your expenses, money that's going out. So it's a fantastic way to evaluate the health of your business. It gives you an accurate picture of profit, of course. And so you can really understand the financial position that your business is in. Um, and when you understand that position, then you can make some little tweaks or adjustments moving forward that will help you make changes to improve that position. And then fourth, as a business owner, right, all of this sits on your shoulders. Of course, you can have professionals that help you, and you have Civitas, you have estate resources, but knowledge is key. So having the confidence and knowing that you're properly claiming the deductions, and that you've met your tax obligation removes any factor of unknown, right? Um, so you don't wonder, did I do it right? Did I miss something? So the more that you understand, the more that you can kind of meet those obligations and really rest assured that you've done everything you can. The understanding taxes gives you the ability to continue to um, know the rules that are set by the IRS, and that you've done everything you can to kind of stay out of any unforeseen debt or future potential problems or issues. So, and we know this is an important piece of childcare business management. We know this because we've been doing this a long time. Our research on past taxes really shows us several findings that that we know this is an issue with childcare business owners specifically, specifically home-based childcare business owners. So 83 in our research, we found that 83% of home-based childcare providers did not claim the business use of home, right? In those cases, of course, your business operates outside your home, it operates in your home, and so there you should be claiming business use of home, but we found that 83% of home-based childcare providers are not doing this at all. So that's a missed opportunity. The IRS allows for these deductions on a Schedule C. That's line 30. It says business use of home. We'll look at that in a sec. You can take those deductions out of costs, meaning it kind of reduces your expenses a little bit. But again, when business owners don't claim this on their taxes, they're kind of missing out on that opportunity. So in some cases, providers aren't claiming any deductions on their tax returns at all. This really should never happen. There's no case where this would make sense for a small business. Every dollar is important to reinvest in your childcare program. So undoubtedly, you have expenses that um, are required to operate. So there should never be an instance where a provider is unable to find anything to claim on their taxes at all. We encourage you to review each category and identify those expenses so you can lower your tax liability overall. Many providers were claiming invalid business expenses. And again, when that happens, that increases your chance of an audit. We want you to understand what those deductions and valid, like allowable expenses look like. And again, the key word is valid. We don't want to enable you to make more claims than are valid for your business. As a rule of thumb, the IRS considers a valid deduction to be ordinary and necessary. It's required for operating your business. And so partly understanding like where that IRS threshold is going to go a long way in helping you prepare your taxes. So another key finding that we've seen was that several common deductions are often miscategorized. So when folks don't understand those deductions, they can get improperly calculated on your taxes. Again, that's an IRS red flag that triggers an automatic audit alert. Even if the deductions in the end are valid, if they're miscategorized or put in a different place, then the IRS is going to flag those. An example of one of these deductions that is often miscalculated is children's meals. We found that many child care providers are deducting children's meals using the line on the Schedule C that deducts for, I think it says deduct business meals. However, the IRS intends that line for providing business meals when traveling, not for children's meals in the case of a child care business. So high expenses in the wrong category, again, are something that the IRS is going to watch out for. So I kind of talked about this a little bit. I brought it up. So I keep talking about this Schedule C. And if you try to do your own taxes or you commonly do your own taxes, you're likely really familiar with this form. There are a couple of different tax forms. If you kind of go, we're doing like the basic foundation of childcare business taxes today, but as you get kind of deeper, you get more into some of these other forms. But income for a sole proprietorship is required on a Schedule C form as part of your personal 1040 tax return. If you have more than one business and they're not closely related in nature, like let's say you do catering on the side or something and you have your childcare business during the week, you'll need more than one Schedule C. So those are per business. Um, when you're completing your Schedule C, that's again, we'll look at the different parts in a second, but you first report your revenue. That's all the money that you receive from your business. Then you kind of show all your expenses, and those are the money that goes out to keep your business running. And then you calculate what remains. If that number is positive, you made a profit. If it's negative, you had a loss. So here's what that Schedule C looks like. You can look at the different sections here for reporting the data on your business. If you use a tax software like TurboTax or H&R Block Online, it will enter these numbers like based on the answers that you claim in certain sections. So you kind of go in and you fill these out, and then it kind of populates your Schedule C, but it does it in the same way. So it's helpful to know your way around this document. Part one here in the red is where your sales are totaled, your cost of goods sold is reported, and you can kind of see your gross profit, right? All the money that you made. Part two is this green part here. That's where your business expenses are reported. So there are over a dozen categories listed here to help you kind of stay organized and help you think through each of those categories, like advertising, car and truck expenses is on there, legal and professional services, rent, travel and meal expenses. That's what that kind of miscategorization we just talked about, and then other costs as well. So it really makes sense for you to kind of go through each one and think about how they, if at all, apply to your childcare business. This last section here in gray is where your net profit is calculated. So here, line 31, you subtract your total expenses from your total profit, for your total revenue rather here, and you kind of get your net profit um, from the document. And I'll say that as a self-employed business owner, your net profit is considered your income, right? So since you and the business are one and the same, that money that you made, that's straight profit to you as being self-employed. So let's switch gears a little bit and kind of build on that information we just talked about and discuss how you can proactively prepare for tax season to avoid those headaches down the road, right? So much of what we talked about, why this is important, is about educating yourself, knowing your way around some of this information. So proper preparation is really key to helping you tackle tax time like a professional. The first kind of critical tool that we want to talk about, and one reason I think this might be helpful, and Margaret and Brooklyn will be adding this in the chat for you in a minute. The reason that I love this tool, remember I mentioned that like we're kind of gonna go and talk a little bit about the beginning of this information. This workbook will walk you through absolutely everything you might need along the way. So um, we're going to look at some tools here because we kind of talk about it moving forward, but things like it's going to help you with record keeping. So it'll suggest some best practices to implement around record keeping, like tracking income, expenses, and mileage. It helps you kind of go in deep on each of those pieces of the Schedule C, how you can, like what goes in each category. It goes in depth on how the business use of home deduction works, including helping you calculate and document your time space percentage, which I did a webinar on that last month. And then tracking and claiming automobile mileage for business travel. Depreciating assets like equipment and furnishings, and that's a really like tricky tax topic. And so this kind of gives some more in-depth information on that. Also taking advantage of the qualified business income, which you sometimes hear called UBI. Um, Choosing the right business structure, that also impacts your tax, um, how your taxes are structured. So it talks about that as well. And then again, some of these proactive tips that we're going to cover in our webinar today are also included. So this workbook, which Margaret added in the chat, it is in English and Spanish. It includes checklists, guides, visual examples, so you can kind of go page by page and walk through all of this and make it implementable, make it actionable for you and for your business. So highly encourage you to kind of check that out. And I touch on kind of a lot of that, but if you want to do it and have those implementable tools, definitely download this workbook and kind of walk your way through it. So when it comes to understanding your taxes, as you kind of like saw previewed in looking at the Schedule C, it's all about what you made and what you spent. So let's look at that. So the first section of your taxes is all about revenue, as I mentioned, right? How much money you made. Getting this info may be easy if you have an accounting system. And if not, no worries. There are just kind of like just some different things you should pull. That workbook from Homegrown that we just talked about has a worksheet that helps you calculate this. So you start by gathering all your revenue records. You're likely to have three types, if not more. These are three common types. You have your 1099 forms. Those are evidence that another business paid you for services. So many home-based childcare businesses receive a 1099 in EC. That's for the subsidy payments and for participation in the Child and Adult Care Food Program or the CACFP. You also might receive a 1099K if you receive more than $600 in business payments from things like Square, Zelle, or PayPal, things like the Venmo, things like that. So make sure you gather all those forms that are issued to you from other businesses or other entities. Then you'll have bank records. Those bank records show additional funds that may come in from other sources. And you might have your own documents like year-end or weekly receipts that show what parents paid. So gather your records, gather everything that tells you how much money came in. And then, as I mentioned, we have this revenue worksheet. This is a sample from the homegrown workbook that we talked about. Um, this is on page 7 in the workbook. And so again, Margaret added those links in the chat for you. This includes each of those sections I just talked about. You'll add each 1099 here, who it was from, how much it was. You'll list other income, maybe grants, fees and payments that were made to you, any reimbursements you received. All of that goes in the income section of Schedule C, Part 1. And I will say, when we get to you may be thinking food also is expense, and you're right. Food expenses go in the full expense section, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So now that you have your business income, right, all of that money that came in, you need to also collect all your expenses. So you'll do something very similar for your expenses that you paid for your to run your business. It's pretty much everything you spent on everything you spent your business on in the last calendar year, so in 2024. Make sure you have records of your costs, ideally receipts showing payments for expenses, but you can also, in many cases, use canceled checks, invoices, or credit card or bank records. So when you think of like, is this proof of expense? You want to make sure it shows that you paid the expense, the date that you paid it, and the amount that you paid, and a description, rough description of the item purchased or the services that were received. So when you think about, is this adequate proof of my expense? You kind of want to make sure it clicks all of those things. When we also think about a mileage log here, right? Because that's often a big part of your expense. There's a mileage log in that workbook as well. That's on page 27. Again, the Margaret's adding great links in the chat for you, both English and Spanish. So here's what that kind of expense worksheet looks like. You can see here there's a link for the mileage log that I just mentioned. To collect your expenses, you want to start by collecting all those receipts that I talked about. You'll go month by month for the last calendar year, review your credit card bills, check app-based system payment systems, like if you pay someone else by Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, Square, etc. Make sure you check those and that those things are reflected. And then, of course, you'll probably want to look at your bank statements and checks just to make sure you kind of got everything. You want to include any expenses that you have. And remember at the beginning when I talked about how many business owners are missing out on some of those allowable expenses? This is probably the piece of the puzzle that kind of gets missed or overlooked. So spending some time here can really ensure that you're getting all of those allowable expenses on here. Um, so a worksheet like this is a great one because it's for childcare specifically, and we've included all of this description, kind of helpful context here that will let you like educate yourself and learn what's going on. The worksheet uses expense categories from the Schedule C that are most relevant for childcare businesses. Um, they can, they are also applicable for other corporate or partnership tax return too. So again, like we have tailored this for childcare businesses, but the information can help you kind of understand taxes in general. So the full amount of home expenses that are directly related to your business can be included in your expense table as well. So the IRS defines a direct expense as one that is, quote, incurred exclusively for the business and provides no personal benefit. So some examples of a direct expense in your home specifically are like fixing a bathroom that's only used by children. Like let's say you have the majority of your childcare business in the basement and the basement has a separate bathroom and that's only used by children or visiting parents, etc. So maybe you got a new children's rug just for the play area, or maybe playground equipment. So those would be things that are directly or exclusively used for the business and not for any personal use, but are of course in your home. So then there are also indirect costs associated with your home and running your business. Those would be things like homeowners insurance, electrical or utility costs. Those will be covered in the following section, which covers your business use of home. And as I mentioned, this workbook walks you through each piece of that. So just you'll notice things like that. I don't think that the screenshot shows that part of it, but you kind of like that helps you understand the direct versus indirect cost. So the other thing to note is that you should keep all pay stubs during tax season, and at least keep those records for 4 years afterwards, at least 4 years. It's great to have both paper and electronic copies because you never know what's going to get lost or what's going to you're going to forget the password and then it deletes your account to your like cloud storage. Even if it's just taking a picture of your phone, or having those records somewhere, you want to make sure you kind of keep those duplicate copies. All right. So let's talk a little bit now about tax preparation because I want you guys you have all this awesome information. Now you want to kind of get it ready. Okay. So of course you have options when it comes to how you get your taxes prepared. Um, Some people might want to do it themselves. If you feel like this is a strength of yours, that's great. It's certainly something that we believe everybody can do. If they're well prepared, well educated, they have all the right tools, and they feel confident. Certainly something you should be able to do yourself. especially if your business is relatively uncomplicated and you can, again, like are using the tools at your disposal. But of course, everybody has the option to go to a paid preparer. In our research, I mentioned that we found that not all preparers are equal when it comes to providing proper service and advice to childcare businesses in particular. So we want to make sure that you find somebody that works for you and knows your business type and can help you. So let's talk about a little bit of the pros and cons of each option. Um, First, let's do for self-preparation. If you're that person that I mentioned really wants to and thinks they can do it themselves, that's awesome. Self-preparation is often more cost-effective, right? You're not paying anybody else to do it, and it can be pretty efficient if you kind of know your way around these documents and you're keeping great records for your business. And so, additionally, the IRS tends to audit online or computer generated tax forms less frequently. So, just, when you think about you do some self-preparation, just remember that the IRS might pay more attention to your preparation than if you used a service or an online um, um, preparation service. Um, so calculations can be more accurate. It's less expensive when you do it yourself. And again, can be more accurate. Um, for if you want to have a paid preparer, so when you're finding a paid preparer, as I mentioned, you want to absolutely look for somebody that's been recommended by other childcare business owners or small business owners in your network. Additionally, like as I mentioned, for the reasons that this is very like kind of a specific kind of knowledge base and skill, it's great if they have experience working with childcare businesses specifically. Um, Particularly if there's something about your business that's unique, try to find somebody who has experience with that particular unique thing that you're doing, right? If possible. That's not always possible. So when you have a paid preparer, of course, you might pay more. It might be more expensive, but you have a guide along the way. They can provide you advice again that can help you like do better record keeping or maybe something you want to change in the future. So you're kind of getting that piece alongside the tax preparation piece. So again, you have options. Um, excuse me. When you're looking for a tax preparer for your business, um, we want to encourage you to be as informed a consumer as possible. So ask the following questions. Are they qualified? All tax preparers should have an IRS preparer tax identification number or a PTIN. Paid tax preparers are required to register with the IRS, so you want to be sure in advance to ask for that in advance. They're not allowed to prepare your tax return without one. You can use an IRS directory to verify a preparer's PTIN and their credentials. So they might tell you something, and then you might want to go around and just double check and make sure that it's confirmed. And then, did they receive training? Ask if your tax preparer has any kind of like extra professional credentials. Enrolled agents or those licensed by the IRS, certified public accountants, or attorneys all might also do taxes, so they can work as tax preparers as well. Other qualified tax preparers might be participants, excuse me, in the annual filing season program, like bookkeepers or certified financial planners. I know like a lot of communities have volunteer tax preparers, and those folks have been, received training for that tax season, so they're kind of qualified in that way. But then in addition to like, are they just professionally able to do it? You also want to make sure that you find someone who's worked with childcare businesses before. It would be great if they have experience with home-based childcare providers, if that's you. Do they understand your needs? Experience really counts when looking for a qualified tax preparation service. In addition for checking like how long they've been doing it, right? What's the length of the experience that they have? Definitely make sure they have knowledge regarding your specific circumstance. Ask if they have any professional organizations that they're a part of, or they take continuing education classes to stay up to date, and make sure they know your state and local tax requirements in addition to, of course, those federal pieces. Another thing to consider is if they're available after tax season for advice or changes, right? Like if something comes back and you realize there was an error, can they help you after the fact? And then, of course, we mentioned record keeping. We want to make sure that you can get a copy of your returns and that you can keep a hard copy of your filed tax return and all of the accompanying documents in your filing. That's good business practice, right? To have that copy for your records. And you never know when you might need something, and you don't want to have to like refer to something maybe for a loan or for a grant, and then you try to reach out to your tax preparer, but they're out of town, maybe they're in Bermuda, and you don't know when they're coming back. So you want to make sure that you have access to that with you in your business. Um, I mentioned having the hard copy and the digital copy. That's still good advice here. Convert them to PDF, file them, take photos on your phone, save them securely. That's all great record keeping best practice. Um, and then finally make sure that all the original things that they use are returned back to you. Keep all your receipts, your proof of payments, your 1099s, any other tax related documentation, as I mentioned, for at least 4 years. So again, I talked about that. Um, this is certainly something you can do. Many people choose to do this themselves. Again, we think that you know, if it's something you're inclined to do, um, we know there are tools out there that can support you doing it yourself. So if you're thinking about preparing your taxes yourself, I just want to spend the last few minutes checking my time to walk through an app that can help you think about filing this year's taxes by looking at your taxes from last year. So one of the things that we found really helpful, particularly with childcare small businesses, is that looking at the tax preparation, whether you did it or someone else did it, can kind of give you a good sense of, am I getting the best advice? Am I doing the things that will help my business in the long run, the things that will keep me out of trouble with the IRS? Like evaluating your previous year's taxes is a great way to kind of set the stage for doing things different this year, preparing yourself for this year, and it can often kind of identify areas on your return that you may want to approach differently this coming year. So we have an app that can help you self-assess. So again, nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to, um, wag your finger at you. There's zero judgment, right? So I want to walk you through this tool. Specifically, it was developed for specific childcare business owners to do this. Um, and another warning here that this is our last section before questions. So I want to make sure that I can like either revisit anything that you want me to come back to, or we can point you to something in the workbook, which again has a lot more information there for you. All right. So if you've decided to prepare your own taxes, this Confidence and Quality Tax Rubric app is a great place to start. This app was developed to allow childcare business owners to evaluate their own federal tax returns for consistency, again, with that best practice that we talked about, and specifically, of course, for your program type. This app can be accessed on your mobile device. We want to make it really easy so you can access it on your phone, you can access it on your desktop or your laptop computer. Um, we have it in a second. We'll have some Margaret's going to put some links in the chat, but then we also have QR codes that will take you directly there. This app was developed with the generous support from the Wisconsin Early Child Care Association through the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. So that's why you see their logos here, but it's really valuable for everybody. It will provide childcare business owners a personalized view of your potential tax risks and your opportunities. It kind of is summarized in a downloadable report. The report is very helpful and informative. And again, it's just for you. No one's double checking it. No one's keeping your information or records. So that when you go to prepare your taxes for this year, you have a really powerful tool that you can either use in your own preparation or you can take it to your tax preparer and that can kind of help them um, improve on what was done last year. So how to get started. Um, There's two things you need in order to begin. You'll need last year's Schedule C of your Form 1040 from your latest completed tax return. And then you need only about 15 minutes. So even if you didn't, like, let's say you're filing late for last year, or maybe you didn't file last year for some reason, excuse me, you can go to the last completed tax form that you have. So you'll use that. Um, if you are a child care center, we suggest following along and looking for opportunities that may exist from the self-assessment of last year's taxes. It's not one for one perfectly accurate, but you will for centers, but you will learn some things, right, about your taxes. This must be on a timer, so sorry about that. So now that you have your Schedule C from last year or year before, whenever you're ready to begin, the first step is to access the app. You have these QR codes here that you can link to. Margaret's put the English and Spanish links in the chat. You have them here if you ever want to revisit these slides or this recording, this will still be here. The app can be accessed by going to these codes, using these links. Again, you can do that on your laptop, desktop, phone, or tablet. Once you're there, it will ask you to accept the user agreement and confirm your type of business before walking you through a series of questions, again, specifically for your business type and then based on your tax return. From here, the rest of the process can be completed in a few simple steps. And remember what I said is this is just for you. This online tool does not retain or share any of the data that you've entered. So it's just meant to be a tool for you, a self-assessment to help you as a business owner learn your way around your taxes, get any tips on improvement or best practices to do better or places that might be potential pain points around taxes, right? All information is used just for that evaluation purposes only, and then it's deleted upon completion of the process. Again, available in both English and Spanish. So once you get started with the app, you'll kind of go through those questions based on your entries in the previous year taxes. So it'll ask you kind of look at line one. And then, enter all of the revenue, here, did you do that? Yes. What did it say? Here. Do you have any money reported on line 21, repairs and maintenance? Yes. How much was there? So it'll kind of walk you through like each piece so you know exactly where to refer to on your Schedule C and you can put it in there. So after you've completed the questions about your tax returns, all that's left to do is answer some final questions and then it'll check for common errors. So you'll put in your email address in the submission box and then it'll email you a report. If you haven't received that in your email after 15 minutes, you can look in your spam folder. And again, this assessment is looking for areas where you could have potentially made an error. Either something was miscategorized, or maybe there were expenses added at a place where we should never see childcare businesses add an expense, or maybe you put in a zero where we often see, and it's saying, oh my goodness, it's saying this is often a place where small childcare business owners report expenses. You should go back and look at that. And remember, again, it's not retaining anything. So this is just for your own, where was I? Was I here? Just for your own edification and just for your own improvement in this really important process. So once you move to the assessment, be sure to take time to read the report. That's kind of your action report, right? That kind of helps you know how to move forward. Where are there areas of opportunity? Where can you save more money? Retain some of that profit that we talked about. Are there places where you can maybe improve your business practices? Or maybe you can kind of refer to that homegrown workbook, that guide, the tax preparation guide, for extra support here. Um, you know, you can certainly do all of that like self-preparation yourself after you kind of know what this is telling you, or you can again like go back to a tax preparer. Um, Again, if you want to complete your own taxes, there are online tax guides available for you to do that. We have developed a couple here for TurboTax, specifically is one we kind of go into. And then there are all the other guides here. Those will kind of walk you through how to use a tool yourself to prepare your own taxes. The guides that are available are for TurboTax, H&R Block, um, and we found that those are just, kind of a superior product for childcare businesses in particular. So if you want to use an online tax software to kind of do your own taxes, these tools will help make it easy, kind of walk you through each step. So the links are here, and Margaret added those in the chat. Thanks, Margaret. And we've also, again, like there's included all the guides that will help you understand like stimulus funds, managing business finances and kind of business operations. This will take you to those Wisconsin branded pieces, but there's going to be information in there that will help you. They're free, they're easy to use, and they have screenshots there to kind of walk you through each of those things if they're applicable to your business. All right, I promised questions would come right after this, and here we are at questions. Any questions? Go ahead and add those in the chat. Um, Again, I want to revisit, like, while you guys are adding some questions in the chat, some of the things we kind of talked about on um, accurately reporting your revenue and deductions for tax purposes specifically. Um, of course, like looking back at the revenue and deductions and expenses that you're um, that you have, the next critical step is to collect your financial data for the current year and kind of like find those parallels, be proactive about what you're doing about tax preparation this year. Start the search for a suitable tax preparer. Trust me, you don't want to start that search if you want to work with somebody to prepare your taxes, you don't want to start that in even February or March. Definitely start that search now, ask around, prepare your questions, start gathering your documents. Whether you decide to tackle your taxes solo or enlist the help of a professional, definitely take advantage of the confidence and quality tax prep rubric, that app that we just talked about. That tool is instrumental in maximizing your deductions and minimizing the risks associated with taxes. We encourage you to utilize the tax prep guide from the Homegrown Childcare team, that workbook that we talked about. It seems like it's intimidating, but if you can walk through each step by step, it'll kind of give you all of the tools and pieces to do this yourself and kind of better understand your business. Um, Note that the review of the tax situation using the information contained in this presentation is, again, like we don't mean for it to say, um, this is going to substitute for getting professional tax advice that's especially related to something unique about your business. Definitely select a qualified tax preparer. Definitely legal or accounting advice if you need it. We don't want to and you might hear me say, like, if you ask a question, I might say that's probably a question better for like somebody who can sit down with you and kind of learn about your business rather than like this, me answering off the cuff in this webinar. Want to make sure like we're not straying into that, professional tax advice piece. So let's look at some of these questions here. Okay. Sharedia, do you have to have an EIN to claim the deductions or Schedule C forms, etc.? No. Um, I actually am not sure. Maybe Margaret, could we record that one? I'm not sure
Yeah,
what the,
definitely. I can
yeah,
share that with Jen or Gary and see if we can get a response, a more clear response on that.
yeah. And in a second, I'm gonna give you a resource to kind of help go that Civitas runs, so you can kind of go at answer ask some of these questions as they go. Um, I feel like my gut says no, but I'm not 100% sure. So, um, oh, thank you, Emily. Um, Taxes together with your husband is fine. Again, your business is going to have that separate Schedule C. So, it doesn't, even if you do, if you have guys have co-ownership and you're married filing jointly, your business can still have that Schedule C as part of your 1040. So that doesn't preclude, um, you know, um, it's you would still need to have the taxes for your business even on your joint taxes, if that makes sense. Emily, I hope you'll have a better way of answering that than I did. Any other questions, you guys? I feel like that one about Sharita, your question about EINs is gonna bother me. Um, I would say like in our experience, like the thing you need to do the most is just to do your taxes, to do your Schedule C, to do your deductions, and that's the primary thing. Um, I can't think of any reason why not having an official EIN would stop you from being able to do that. So the most important thing is to do the taxes to your business, claim the deductions that are allowable. Um, make sure you're in good standing with the IRS, make sure you understand the risks. There you go. I was like, I feel like the IRS will tell you. There we go. So I was like, thanks, Margaret. You do not need an EIN if you're a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC. So usually you get an EIN when your business structure is that you kind of have a separate LLC. So it would depend on your business structure, and that was what I was thinking too, Margaret. Thanks for confirming. Um, as a sole proprietor, your business is you and you are the business. So you wouldn't need a separate EIN if you are structured as a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC. Now, when your business gets to get to a point where you need kind of a separate LLC stands for limited liability, so it kind of separates the liability between you and the business. Then the business itself gets an EIN to kind of separate it from you. Does that make sense? And as Margaret mentions in the chat, until then, your social security number is your business's EIN because the business is you. Thanks, Margaret. Okay. Um, is there a time limit in Oregon? And I don't know Oregon specific. So you would definitely want to look to some state specific, if those rules are different in Oregon. For federal, of course, there is a time limit. Even if you want an extension, you need to file for an extension. It's not like, oh, I need more time, I'll just do nothing, and then the IRS will understand. Even if you need more time at the federal level, you'll need to apply for that extension with the IRS. And there's a time limit to do that too. So make sure to keep up to date on those. Yeah, no problem. Okay. I have a question. Emily, can you translate this other one?
Can you hear me in
Okay,
the
I'll
English
look for
channel?
that.
Can you hear me?
So my school
Yes, I
district
can
has
hear you, Emily.
Okay. So Mireya just says, that's fine. The answer is because last year, um, I did mine, and then after,
so yes, for a single member
my
LLC,
husband's,
you will use your social
and
security
we
number
weren't
instead
sure
of
if
the
it was right
EIN.
or not. But I think
And
Mireya is
that
just saying she
will,
was satisfied with the
again,
answer.
Okay, thank
I
you.
would I would use what has been given to you by the IRS. And so If you're filing as part of a sole proprietorship or single member LLC, so you're filing as part of your personal business taxes, you'll use your social security number. And again, that's generally speaking. So remember, I promised I wasn't going to answer anybody's specific kind of questions related to like your specific. That's generally speaking. So if you feel like there's something weird that needs kind of outside counsel, I would absolutely encourage you to get it. Because I can't be with all of you and say, like, claim to understand everybody's ins and outs of the business and your taxes. So if you feel like there's something weird related to your business, absolutely get some advice. I'm going to give you some Civitas resources in a second that will help you kind of come back to our team if needed. Of course, there might be people in your community or kind of people in your network that you might want to lean on as well. All right, so let me go ahead and leave us with those couple of things. So if we weren't able to answer your questions, or if you kind of get a little bit further down the road and you have another question that comes up, I want to leave you with this resource here. This is the Tom Copeland blog. I'll give you the slide in Spanish in a second. There are questions there. There's a portal, little like a space in at the top at the website to it's called Ask the Experts, which I always stumble over saying that. And then you could submit your questions through there. Those questions are answered by the team. They're not answered, they don't go in and go away. They're actually answered by the team here at Civitas. They're answered monthly. You can subscribe to the newsletter to kind of get those responses as they come out. Here that is in Spanish. Again, I want to make sure you kind of have this, you bookmark it. It's a great place to go back to kind of resources that have been posted on the site, and also be able to kind of submit your questions like as they come up moving forward. So it's a great resource for you. Another resource that I will leave you with is our YouTube channel. Everything is posted here. Everything the Civitas team puts together, all the recorded webinars, all the recordings of all the resources that they've done for folks across the country are all here. In English and Spanish. It's updated whenever everything ever comes out. The videos where we answer the team questions from the blog site are posted there. Everything is added there. So if again, if you kind of subscribe to that YouTube channel, you'll kind of see all the topics there in a variety of, for a variety of audiences too. So you can see this tax content as it's been presented over the last few months. So that's a great resource as well. Again, the video is there in English and Spanish. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Margaret added those links in the chat. Oh, and Brooklyn. Thanks, you guys. All right. Awesome. I'm surprised you didn't have more questions, but I'm happy. Hopefully that means I answered them all as we went along. Thank you all for being here. I know, again, this is kind of a complicated topic and it's something that fills a lot of business owners with anxiety, and we don't want that. We're here to help. The team is here to help. There are resources out there that can help you and help your business. So stay in touch. We left you with a few things that can help you kind of remain in touch with Civitas, and you'll also have this recording. And you can come back to it if needed. There are resources out there that will help, so make sure you kind of grab those links while you can. Use the workbook, use the resources and tools that we provided, and hopefully this can be a little bit smoother moving forward, and you can kind of like maximize everything for your business at tax time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Emily, for translating. Thanks, Brooklyn and Margaret, for providing us support today. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for all you do. Happy New Year.